Richard Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the honourable member for Afon. I'm not as familiar as he is, obviously, with the arrangements between Wales and the Treasury, but I think he made his points very clearly. There was another thing he said, which, and I think if I caught him correctly, about taxation not being fair enough and nor being sufficient. I might have slightly more disagreements with him on that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But it's a pleasure to be called in this debate. As you said, this is a debate without limit, and I was tempted. I was tempted, as part of the concern that many honourable members said about the complexity of our tax code, that I would stand here with the tax code and read it from cover to cover. But I think if I were to read all 23,000 pages, I think even that might test your patience, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So this year, I shall not do so. But it was very interesting listening to the two opening speeches. Obviously, the measures in this finance bill go back to the budget. And I don't think we should lose sight of what a tremendous job our front bench did with that budget, with the Chancellor, at a time when there were so many competing pressures on the public purse, at a time when there are so many competing pressures from their own backbenchers, let alone from the opposition. It is, I think, a tribute to the Treasury and to their officials that they were able to craft a budget that withstood the test of time to this point, and to which the opposition have been scrambling around to find reasons to find disagreements with it. They have a lit on one, which is the pension changes, which is interesting because I remember distinctly responding to a debate from that dispatch box when there was pressure from all political parties, from the Scottish Nationalists, from, I think, representatives from Northern Ireland, definitely from the Labour Party and from our own benches, that we should make precisely the changes that the government has announced in this budget. So obviously the Labour Party had nothing really substantive to say in opposition to the budget, and that is a tribute to our front bench. If I may just say to the honourable gentleman, the member for Ealing North, the opposition spokesman, I do enjoy our encounters. I remember the first thing that he said, Mr. Deputy, upon my appointment to the Treasury, which was that I should be sacked. I think our relationship, he didn't quite get what he wanted, the record will show. But our relationship got better over time, which I'm pleased about. But I would just gently say to him that the time has already passed for the Labour Party, if they want to be treated seriously in the run-up to the next general election. The time has passed for them to say, well, just wait and see. It is quite reasonable for people to ask in this place today for the honourable gentleman to be clear whether or not it is the intention of the Labour Party to harmonise capital gains tax with income tax. But that was a question that the honourable member opposite dodged on behalf of the Labour Party. It is quite reasonable, as we're discussing the international corporation tax, the global minimum tax, whether it is the intention of the Labour Party to push for that 15%, if it is enacted, to go up. So I hope that perhaps in their closing they can answer some of the questions that have been put by my honourable friend and myself. But may I just say that one of the most important aspects of the measures is whether they meet the challenges of today and prepare us for the challenges of tomorrow. I came in the 2019 election, I made the point to my voters that we were already at one of the highest rates of taxation in this country since the 1960s, and since then it has gone up. It's gone up obviously because of the implications and effects of the support measures for COVID, and this is difficult and uncomfortable territory for Conservatives. Our intention, our objectives should be to lower taxation. Too rarely in this House of Commons do we hear the voices for lowering taxation. It seems to be completely beyond the pale for the opposition party, the Labour Party, ever even to consider that there might be a time that it might be right to lower taxes. Certainly, Labour Party would never dream of lowering taxes if you are foolhardy enough to earn more than £50,000 a year. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see the opposition front bench, the Labour Party front bench, getting up to say, no, hold on a minute, we are in favour of people who earn more than £50,000. There may be a day one day we may cut their taxes. We're not hearing anything of that from Labour because Labour relies on making people not like the fact that people can make a lot of money. It is a huge change from the days of Tony Blair and of the New Labour. In those days, Tony Blair recognising that the British people liked the idea that if they couldn't make a lot of money themselves, perhaps their children would start a business and make some money, or they'd get a good career, yes, in the health service and make a lot of money. That was what the Labour Party then stood for, and it was because the Labour Party understood that natural instinct that people want their kids to have a better future, and if they make it, that they can keep more of their money to make a better future for their families in turn, that the Labour Party under Tony Blair caught the attention of the British electorate. And what is clear is that the Labour Party under this leader will go into the next election with nothing like the agenda that New Labour stood for in 1997. It is not. It is not. And they say we haven't seen it. Well, why are you waiting? If it's so good, if the Labour Party's manifesto is so good, let's see it. Let's not hide behind what it says. So, Mr. Don't tempt me to it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we look at Clause 2, the main rates of income tax, can I just reiterate a point made by my honourable friend who talked about the 60% marginal rate that occurs. This is an anomaly that I think it would be wise for the Treasury to look at again. There's still time, maybe not in this budget, but certainly in the future budget, to come forward with some form of simplification for that. On corporation tax, I think the government was caught, and my honourable friend, the member for Amber Valley, made a reasonable point. But I think the corporation tax, there is a difference between the tax-raising powers that we may wish to have and the signalling effect that it will have for the attraction of international capital. Those headline rates of corporation tax are usually what are the levels at which investment decisions can get a green light or get a red light from multinationals. On the multinational top-up tax, the OECD mutual tax, I actually welcome the fact the government is at least putting in this measures. Perhaps this isn't the right place, as the Honourable Member for South Thanet said, but it is important that the UK has some response. But I would say it is rather foolhardy, potentially foolhardy, for us to progress at a pace that creates a competitive disadvantage for us. Many members talk about economic growth and desire for economic, that's a great thing, but economic growth comes because a country is an environment where you can attract international capital and international talent. And part of that is how much tax will people pay. And if we are in a situation where we're both heralding the fact that we want to tax individuals at the highest rate possible, and in the Labour Party case, take away an exemption they have when people might come here for the first time to stop them being double taxed. And if it's a Labour Party policy, and perhaps under this, that we're going to now raise corporation tax to high levels, I think that sends all the wrong signals. I do worry about those issues within the multi-level top-up tax. So let's not progress those measures in the United Kingdom ahead of our main competitors. The Right Honourable Member for East Ham has left his place, but he asked questions about the abolition of the Office of Tax Simplification. And that was actually a decision that was made during my time at the Treasury. The Honourable Member for East Ham made some good points about how that office had provided some points about tax simplification when they were allocated tasks. And I have no concerns or criticisms about the work that they did. However, I don't think that if a government of any stripe is serious about tax simplification, that process was going to achieve that objective. And my view was that it would be better to embrace that as a whole government effort, and I hear his concerns about if everyone's in charge, no one's in charge. That was never the intention, of course, that we would move to have someone in charge within Treasury directly, to look at tax simplification on a much more holistic basis, rather than on a case-by-case approach that was working with the Office of Tax Simplification. So that was the rationale back last year. I think it's fair if the front bench wish to update it, but I thought for the interest of the Honourable Member for East Ham, to whom I have enormous respect, I would mention that. Finally, can I just say something that isn't in this bill, but I think we need to think about, which is if we are going to achieve net zero, we've made tremendous strides by asking our corporations to start accounting for carbon in their annual account reporting. And we need to harness the power of the private sector if we're going to achieve our net zero goals. And I saw reports in the Times, there are going to be some more announcements tomorrow that may affect this. But I would say what we didn't see was enough, perhaps, from the government about what the plans are on carbon taxes in the UK. Because introduction of a carbon tax, if you want to achieve a social objective, then I think this is one of the ways that would be an effective way to do it. And if that could be combined with reductions in general corporation tax, I think that would be a helpful move. It can't be done all of a sudden, but I think it would be an interesting addition to the mix for the government. So I'd like to thank my right honourable and honourable friends on the front bench for the budget and for the measures, and I look forward, should I be selected by the whips, to debating it, which I don't think will happen, a safe bet, to debating it line by line in committee.